Alright guys, today we're going to make this video over climatographs, and we're going to be looking at one for forest. Now you'll have a climatograph for deserts and grasslands as well. So again, you're going to see a worksheet for forest, then you're going to see one that looks very similar for deserts, and finally you'll see one for grasslands. So when we're doing these, we're going to look at climatograph is a graph of the climate, and the two important parts for climate are temperature and rainfall or precipitation. So you're going to actually be graphing these points. And now what does cause some bit of confusion is that this graph has precipitation data on one side, and so the blue column over here where I'm marking precipitation goes with this set of data, and then the temperature, which is over here on this axis, goes with the temperature data. Okay, and so when you're plotting these, you need to keep in track of that fact. All right. The other thing is the temperature is a line graph. So up here we'll be drawing a line graph, and the precipitation is a bar graph. So that's how these graphs work. So we'll end up with a line graph at the top and bar graph at the bottom. So at this point we just simply start plotting. So we have a temperature in January of 39. So here's January, but again, do not use this data because this is precipitation. I want to use this data for temperature. So January 39, so here is 30. We go almost up to 40 and we place our dot. Going over to our next, February is 41. And we go to March, which would be our next month, and it's 48. So it's almost at the 50 mark. 59, 68, 79, 84. All right, and then we're in August, so we're coming back down to 82. All right, and then we're going back 75, so somewhere between 70 and 80. 64. 54, and then finally 45. So we have our dots for our line graph, and then we just connect those dots. And then that line represents our temperature of this biome. And there's some things we'll look back at with that in just a minute. So now we want to do our precipitation, and this will end up being a bar graph, okay? And so our bar graph, I like, instead of putting dots, I like to put a little slash in each column. So precipitation, the first one is 3.3. So 0, 2, and then 4. So 3.3 is somewhere between the middle. 2.8, so that's down here. 3.9, it's almost at 4. 3.7, a little less. 3.7 again. 3.1, so we move down. 3.2. 3.0, 3.7, 3.7, 3.2, and 3.4. Now once we have those, now we'll need to color that in to represent a bar graph, and so we'll just use this blue highlighter here. Okay. All right. Now on this bar graph, we can start now making some interpretation about what we're reading. So first of all, you got to be able to plot the data, and then second of all, you need to be able to interpret the data. So the first thing we see is over here is, does the data suggest this is a taiga, a temperate deciduous, or a dry deciduous? So up at the top of each graph gives you a little bit of information. So it tells me here which have the longest and coldest winters. So if I look at this, I do see, since it has this spike right here, that tells me that this is seasonal. All right, this is seasonal, okay? And so this top is my summer. So it doesn't look like it has the longest and coldest winters because we have this peak above 80, which represents summer. So we look at temperate deciduous, which enjoys a growing season long enough to support broadleaf trees. And so the summer is the growing season, and it looks like we have a good growing season, and that is the answer. Temperate deciduous. All right. Now we'll come down here, we'll define summer, spring, autumn, and winter. Well, we got our summer. That means these edges are winter. And then coming towards summer is spring. And going towards winter is fall or autumn. And so we just write them on there for this case. Now, does this have a dry season or a wet season? So if we look at our rain down here, we see that the rain stays about the same. So it has no wet or dry season. This gets about the same amount of rain that it does all year. So you're going to be plotting your points and then making interpretations based on those lines. A curved line is going to represent some type of season, okay? And then a curved bar graph, which we don't have here, would represent some type of wet or dry season. So if we quickly look at another example, here we see an example here. So we see the curve, so we know that's seasonal. And then we see here down very, very minimal rainfall. So a lot less rainfall than this forest, so that tells us something about the biome. So again, you're going to be working on forest, grasslands, and deserts.